In the mid-1990s, Death Row Records was at its peak, having an estimated worth of $100 million by 1996. However, its spiral downhill was almost as fast as its rise to film, so now let's take a look at what made Death Row Death Row. And there's no denying it. Death Row was not what it was because of Dre or Snoop or Suge or even Tupac, but the numerous Blood and Pyru members Suge had around him. In the late 1960s, Compton's demographic had a significant change. White people were moving out and the Black and Latino people were moving in. Significant events such as the violence from police, the Black Panther movement, and the rise of the Crip gang had a huge impact on cities around LA such as South LA, Inglewood, and Compton. The Crips were formed originally as a neighborhood group to protect themselves, but when gang members got hold of guns and drugs, it turned the city into a war zone. However, during this time, Suge was living a decent life in Compton. According to his former friend Mob James, Suge lived in a two-parent household and was an only child. He was kept away from gangs and played football and almost made it pro. While playing football, he met a lot of key figures in Compton such as Keefe D, who we'll get into a bit later. By 1988, Suge was no longer playing football and was instead looking for other ways to make money. Around this time, he became allegedly bodyguard for Eazy-E and Ruthless Records. Bear in mind, at this time, Eazy was a Crip, but Suge wasn't a gang member yet. Suge befriended Dr. Dre and they both decided they wanted to start a record label. Suge also started hanging around Compton more and befriended multiple Pyru and Blood members, mainly from the areas around Litters Park. He also struck a deal with a big drug kingpin, Michael Harris, who was also a bounty hunter Blood around the Nickerson Gardens. Harris, who went by the name Harry O, was in jail at the time. He was one of the two main investors and was expected to make profit from it. However, Suge scammed him out of his money and never paid him back. It is unclear how Suge employed the Pyrus to work for him, but by 1990, members such as Mob James and his brother Buntry were rolling around with Suge robbing studios for equipment. According to Mob James, Suge himself and other Mob and Litters Park Pyru members pressed Jerry Heller into signing over Dre. By 1991, everything was set and Death Row had started. However, Suge wasn't as laid back and chill as he was before and had set up multiple Blood sets within Death Row, being his goons and bodyguards as well as his hit squad. I'll do a deep dive video into these sets in a future video. By 1994, a lot more artists had signed over, with a lot of them being linked to Snoop and being Rolling 20 neighborhood Crips from Long Beach. Members from 213, which was Snoop Dogg's old crew, had been signed to Death Row, including Daz, Warren G, and Nate Dogg, who were all 20 Crip. Another Crip rapper, Corrupt, from the Rolling 60 neighborhood, was also signed. These new Crip rappers formed the Dog Pound gangsta music group within Death Row. This new group of Crips created an alleged divide in the studio, with Dre, Snoop and the Dog Pound Crips being on one side, whereas Suge, Danny Boy and the rest of the Bloods were on the other side. This is where the alleged beatings and fights took place between staff, but for the most part everything was still in order. However, by 1996, Tupac was signed and he was welcomed to the Mob Pyru set, even getting a tattoo on his arm. Well, now you know the brief history of the gang ties within Death Row. Let's take a look at significant Blood gang members within Death Row who had a lot to do with the success of the company. Henry Smith, who went by the name of Hen Dog, was a member of the Pyru and was believed to be a part of the Mob Pyru set. He was one of the first members in the company and was the one who designed the infamous Death Row logo that was on the chains and the one that is still used today. He was also a part of the entourage with Tupac when he was shot by Southside Compton Crip members in 1996. He himself was unfortunately killed in 2002 by alleged members of the Denver Lane Bloods. 3 more Mob Pyru members I should mention are the brothers, Mob James, Buntry and Timmy Roo. James and Buntry were also some of the first around death row, and Buntry was especially close with Shug. He was one of Shug's closest men, and was also one of the Pyru members who beat down Baby Lane at the MGM. He was killed by another Pyru member in the Death Row Pyru War I have mentioned previously on my channel. Mob James left the gang and also Death Row after this incident. Timmy Roo was the youngest of the 3 brothers, and according to James he is still in the streets. The final and most controversial Pyru member I want to talk about is Poochie. Poochie was a hitman for Shug and was allegedly the one who killed Biggie Smalls. Although he wasn't a staff member or hitman, DJ Quick was also around Death Row a lot and helped produce some of the records. He was from the Treetop Pyru, close to Litters Park and Fruit Town. Be sure to check out my other videos on the Pyru War and facts about Biggie's killer. The Pyru War video will be remade with more detail and better production for the next video. It will talk about the war between the East Compton Pyrus. Thanks for watching.